Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today, looking at a whole bunch of conversations, different sources, all aiming at one thing, really. Helping you become, well, a pro at listening to English.
That's right. We've sifted through this material, specifically looking for the most practical tips, things you can actually do, the core ideas, maybe some surprises too, all to help train your ear and, really improve how you understand spoken English.
Because it's so much more than just like hearing the words one by one, isn't it? These sources really hammer that home.
Absolutely. It's about training your brain to actually catch the whole soundscape, the natural rhythm, how words connect, the flow of it all.
Getting the feel for it.
Exactly. Moving past just dictionary meanings into how it sounds in the real world. And what really jumped out from all these conversations is that the foundation for getting better, it's not some hidden trick. It's actually pretty straightforward.
Oh, Chin.
Consistent daily practice.
Daily. Even if it's just a little bit. I think people worry they don't have hours.
No, that's the thing. A really common point was that even short bursts, like 10 or 15 minutes a day, but done every day, they work much better than trying to cram in hours once a week.
Right. Consistency beats cramming.
Totally. It's that regular exposure that does the trick, builds familiarity.
Okay, that sounds way more doable. And part of that daily exposure, the sources were saying, is getting used to English how it's really spoken, not the super slow, clear version you sometimes get in lessons.
Precisely. They really highlighted listening for how words link up. And all the contractions people use. Gonna, wanna, I am your...
Stuff that makes it sound smooth.
Yeah, and the rhythm, the stress patterns, that's the natural sound of English. Training your ear for that is crucial.
And this leads to something else they really emphasized, which honestly feels a bit weird at first. Don't obsess about catching every single word.
Yes, all this came up so much. The material really stressed that focusing too hard on every little word, especially ones you don't know, it's actually counterproductive.
How so?
It just makes you stressed. And you end up missing the bigger picture. You get stuck on one tricky word and poof, the whole sentence, maybe the whole idea just flies by.
Okay, so if you're not focusing on every word, what do you focus on?
The overall sound, the main gist, and learning to guess from the context. The sources framed guessing as a really important skill, not like a sign you failed.
Ah, so guessing is good.
It's smart, it keeps you moving, lets your brain fill in the gaps using the information you did catch, and you get better at it. It makes listening feel less like a constant test, more about just understanding.
It sounds like building a skill, almost like working out.
That's a perfect analogy, and one the sources used a lot. Training your ear is like exercising a muscle. They called it the listening muscle. Like any muscle, you got to challenge it sometimes.
Challenge it how? Not lifting weights with your ears, presumably.
No. But one really powerful way they talked about is practicing without subtitles sometimes.
Ooh, okay. That sounds hard. Most people watch everything with subtitles these days.
It does feel intimidating, definitely. And yeah, you will miss stuff at first. That's kind of the point.
How so?
Well, the sources were clear. That feeling of struggling a bit, that's the workout. It forces your brain to work harder, to rely just on the sound and the context.
Did you just dive in?
Maybe not with, like, a super complex movie right away.
Well,
They suggested starting easier. Simple podcasts, maybe shows with clearer dialogue. Then gradually try it with trickier stuff. It's about building up that muscle.
okay, gradual challenge. Makes sense. What about speed? Native speakers can sound like they're talking a mile a minute.
They really can. And the sources tackle this head on. They suggest actively working on speed. Start with things that are a bit slower, easier to follow. Then deliberately listen to things that are a little faster.
Like turning up the treadmill speed.
Exactly like that. Your brain actually adapts. It gets quicker at processing speech the more you expose it to slightly faster speeds. It's another form of that workout.
Right. So daily listening, challenging the ear. But what kind of stuff should we actually be listening to? Did the materials give any pointers there?
They did. The general agreement was pick stuff that's good for learning, obviously, but also stuff you actually find interesting. If it's boring, you won't stick with it.
Makes sense. Keep it engaging. What about starting simple?
Yeah, that was a big one. Things like stories or just everyday conversations. Listening to how people chat about normal stuff is gold for learning natural flow and common phrases.
Things you can actually use.
Exactly. But variety is good too. The sources mention music, great for rhythm, pronunciation, picking up phrases, especially if you try singing along.
I can see that. And movies.
Movies too, yeah. Especially things like sitcoms, they often came up as good examples of everyday conversational English. idioms, slang, the works.
What about different accents? That throws a lot of people off.
It really can. And the sources were pretty strong on this. You need exposure to different accents, American, British, Australian, others. It's just realistic preparation.
Because you'll hear them in the real world.
For sure. If you find some accents really tough, maybe start with ones that seem clearer to you, but don't avoid the variety altogether. Exposure is how you get used to them. It just takes time.
And any specific resources, like beyond movies and music?
Oh yeah, the podcasts and YouTube channels were mentioned constantly.
Yeah.
Huge variety there, right? Any topic, any level. Also, interestingly, things like tutorials, explaining grammar or vocabulary, they can be good listening practice too.
How come?
Because they often explain things clearly, using the language in context, so you're hearing the rules applied in real sentences.
And thinking about why you're listening, formal versus informal.
Yes, good point. Tailor it a bit. If you need English for work, make sure you listen to some formal presentations or discussions. If it's just for travel or chatting, focus more on that casual, everyday stuff. But a mix is usually best.
Okay, so we know we need to listen daily, challenge ourselves, and pick good content. But how do we make it more active? Not just letting it wash over us. The sources had some hands-on strategies, right?
Definitely. This is where you really engage. One simple one they mentioned is just repeating sentences you hear out loud.
Like mimicking.
Kind of. It connects the listening directly to your own speaking muscles.
Yeah.
Very direct feedback loop.
And then there was shadowing. That came up quite a bit.
Yes. Shadowing. I highly recommend it in several sources. That's where you listen and try to speak along at the same time as the speaker, like a shadow.
Whoa, that sounds really difficult. And maybe embarrassing.
It totally can be at first. The materials acknowledge that. They said, start when you're alone if you feel shy, and start small, just shadow short phrases.
What's the benefit of struggling through that?
It's amazing for fluency, pronunciation, rhythm, intonation all at once. You're trying to match the native speaker's sound and flow directly. It builds muscle memory for how English should feel when you speak it.
Okay, worth a try maybe. What about taking notes?
Yes, but with a twist. Instead of just writing down single words you don't know.
Which is what most people do.
Right. The sources really pushed writing down whole phrases or chunks. So not just doing, but how are you doing? Or what are you doing later?
Why is that better?
Because language comes in chunks. Learning phrases makes your own speaking sound much more natural, much faster. And super important, you have to actually review those notes later. Maybe keep a dedicated phrase journal.
Makes sense. How do you know if you're actually, getting it, understanding what you hear?
Good question. The sources suggested checking your understanding actively. Like, after listening to a short bit, try saying what it was about in your own words. Or summarize the main point.
A kind of self-test.
Exactly. It forces you to process the meaning, not just hear the sounds. And bonus, it's speaking practice too.
So listening and speaking are really tightly connected then?
Massively connected. This was a huge theme. Practice speaking out loud. A lot. Even if it's just talking to yourself in English about your day.
Really? Talking to yourself?
Yep. It activates the language. The link between input, listening, and output speaking is vital. You need both.
And what about the fear? The fear of making mistakes when you do speak?
Oh, the sources were so clear on this. Mistakes are not bad. They're necessary. They're how you learn. Don't let fear stop you from trying. Every error is just information for next time. Any other quick active tips that came up?
Yeah. Use new words and phrases you learn right away in your own sentences. Helps them stick. Try to, think in English sometimes. Start small. I'm hungry. Need to leave soon.
Thinking in English. Interesting.
And writing practice helps too. Even short things, messages, emails, a quick journal entry, reinforces what you're learning through listening. Again, start simple if it feels hard.
And if you're feeling brave enough to talk to others.
Language partners, obviously, is a great option. If that feels too scary at first, the sources suggested trying online chats or language exchange apps, maybe less pressure than face-to-face.
Okay, one last area, grammar. People often treat it separately. Did the sources connect it to listening?
They did. The key idea was to learn grammar more naturally by noticing how it's used in the stuff you listen to.
Ah, so seeing it in action. Exactly. Context makes it stick better than just memorizing rules from a book. Pay attention to how native speakers actually structure their sentences when they talk.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of practical stuff. But keeping it going, motivation can be tough. And tools.
Yeah, staying motivated is crucial, right? The sources suggested reminding yourself why you're learning. Set clear goals. And this is important. Celebrate the small victories. Like Understanding a joke you wouldn't have caught last month.
Keep it positive.
And keep it fun. Choose topics you actually like. If you hate politics, don't force yourself to listen to political podcasts just because you think you should.
Good point. What about tools, apps?
Apps came up as useful, yeah. Good for squeezing in practice here and there. Yeah, especially ones with games or quizzes. Makes it feel less like studying.
And transcripts. People love transcripts.
They're super useful, no doubt. Great for checking words you missed or reading along to connect sounds and spelling. Builds vocabulary. But
there's always a but.
the source is warned about relying on them too much. It can become a crutch, stop your ear from doing the work.
So find a balance.
Exactly. One really good strategy mentioned was listen or watch once without the transcript or subtitles. Really challenge your ears. Then listen and watch again with them to catch what you missed and learn new things.
Best of both worlds.
Kind of, yeah. And one more slightly awkward tool.
Let me guess. Recording yourself.
You got it. Recording your own voice speaking English. It feels weird, but listening back helps you hear your pronunciation and rhythm much more objectively. Compare it to the native speaker audio.
Okay, useful if slightly painful. So when you boil it all down, it really seems to come back to a couple of main things.
I think so. Consistency, doing it regularly, and patience, knowing it takes time. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Don't give up if it feels hard sometimes.
Right. So to quickly recap the core ideas from these sources, listen every day, even just a bit. Train your ear to focus on the flow and the main idea, not every single word. Actively challenge yourself, maybe try turning off those subtitles sometimes, or listen to slightly faster stuff. Choose content that you actually find interesting, that works for you. Use active techniques like repeating aloud, shadowing those tricky phrases, taking notes on whole chunks of language, not just words.
Check your understanding. Connect listening directly to speaking practice. Don't fear mistakes. Use tools like apps and transcripts smartly. Don't rely too much on transcripts. And remember to record yourself occasionally.
And underpinning it all, patience, consistency, celebrate your progress, keep it enjoyable. Mastering listening isn't magic, it's about smart, steady practice.
Absolutely. So with all these really practical insights, strategies pulled directly from the source material, here's the real question they pose, the challenge for you listening. How will you take these ideas and actually weave consistent, enjoyable English listening practice into the fabric of your own everyday routine?